in the achievement of heavily indebted poor countries have a completion point in December 2023. Up to 20% of the Somali population have benefited from the World Bank funded activities in Somalia since 2018. Approximately 69% of these beneficiaries were poor people living with small children and were affected by the drought, floods, and a locust infection in many parts of Somalia. Support to the rehabilitation of access roads and climate resistant infrastructure in many parts of Somalia and many municipalities in corners of Somalia bring various benefits to millions of people, including internally displaced people, IDPs, that had migrated to urban areas due to security, natural disasters, events. Provision of effective livelihoods and life-saving assistance to our citizens throughout the triple crisis of climate shocks, locust infestation, and COVID-19 pandemic. Essentially, IDA in Somalia has meant more vulnerable people out of extreme poverty, more social protection, and women and children are focused on supporting government institutions by helping those vulnerable groups. Despite our successful decade-long economic reforms to achieve debt relief throughout the highly indebted poor countries initiative, HICC, we remain among most fragile states in the African continent and the world. Without doubt, Somalia has come a very long way from where we were a decade ago in terms of macroeconomic stability and socio-economic development. We also have exciting and empowering plans to keep the reform momentum going on, to lock in the vital gains we have made and build on them for a transformative change. However, these efforts require resources. Accordingly, we require the upcoming IDA21 replenishment to be of the scale and ambition that will help shift the situation from fragility to resilience and growth in Somalia. And this can only happen through greater investment in human capital, infrastructure, social protection, job creation, increasing affordable energy access, and building resilience to the disastrous and disproportionate impact of recurrent and cyclical climate emergencies in my country through IDA 2021. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a government, we are truly committed to build on the economic reform gains from the debt relief process by the future. Further enhancing domestic revenue, mobilization and strengthening public and financial management, debt management, and deepening financial sector development in Somalia. We are cognizant that the most reliable income for the nation is what it collects from its citizens and investors to reinvest the priorities and the public service needs accordingly. With a focus on clear laws and more efficient and effective tax administration, we are steadily growing domestic revenues. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude that IDA is a tool that helps Africa to progress, and in particular Somalia to move forward as fast as we can. Adjustments, tolerances, and flexibility is what is required in the years to come to benefit from the IDA resources. Again, I would like to thank the government and the people of Kenya for providing us this opportunity to discuss about the future of our nations in economic development. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I would like to invite the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, the African Union Chairperson and President of the Republic of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, His Excellency Mohammed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazouani, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Governments, President Ajay Banga, and senior management of the World Bank Group, representatives of the United Nations, the African Union, and other regional bodies, representatives of governments, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring you very warm greetings from the government and people of Sierra Leone. I extend my deep gratitude to President William Ruto and the people of Kenya for hosting the 21st replenishment of the International Development Association Summit for Africa 2024. IDA21. I express similar appreciation to the International Development Association team and its partners for their relentless effort in accelerating the mobilization of much needed resources that will support the transformational development objectives of low-income countries, including those in our beloved continent. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is at a crossroads. Our continent faces an array of challenges unique in its history. Recovery from the devastating impact of COVID-19, rising debt and economic vulnerability, political instability, the growing disruption of climate change, often compounding underlying fragilities, and the full crisis triggered by the conflict in Ukraine. According to the Sustainable Development Goal Report 2023, if the current trends persist, about 7% of the world's population, which is 575 million, will remain in extreme poverty, with most of them being in sub-Saharan Africa. Many governments in Africa are making huge strides to advance sustainable development and alleviate extreme poverty in their countries, in alignment with targets set out in the African Union Agenda 2063 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. However, with 6 short years left to achieve the SDGs, most of our countries are not on track to meet the targets. Under current circumstances, a business as usual approach to Africa's development is not going to work. We need a change in our approach. We need a bolder vision that will transform Africa, reduce its vulnerability in a turbulent world, and set it firmly on a path to sustainable growth and prosperity. Our current exigencies call for decisive and collaborative actions from African governments and the international community, and reliable development partners such as the World Bank Group to usher in sustainable transformation in Africa. For IDA to remain relevant to the evolving needs of member countries, especially in Africa, it must grow and adopt responsive and innovative mechanisms to finance transformational development. Our collective aspiration to accelerate development in Africa by providing sustainable financing from IDA21 replenishment remains a critical milestone that must be achieved with resounding success. A renewed commitment to good governance, transparency, and accountability must be central to our efforts. These are the cornerstones upon which we can build resilient institutions and foster an environment conducive to investment, innovation, and economic growth. Therefore, Sierra Leone unreservedly endorses the Nairobi IDA communique and looks forward to working with recipient African nations to advocate for a mega 21st IDA replenishment. The communique reflects our vision to ensure prosperity of Africans and particularly safeguard the aspirations of Agenda 2063 and the SDGs, which aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030 all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Today, as we present the IDA Nairobi communique, we are optimistic that the provision of additional resources would support our vision for a climate-smart, resilient, and integrated Africa. The IDA21 resources should help our countries expand quality, sustainable, climate-smart infrastructure investment in agriculture, energy, transport, water, and sanitation, healthcare infrastructure, and other sectors. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is key to global growth, security, and ending poverty in a livable planet. Despite the many threats our nations face, there are also real opportunities on the continent. Our natural resources, youthful population, and rapid growth of African cities and the middle classes have huge potential as they are beacons for investors to search in search of new markets. If Africa is to meet the targets of SDG 8, decent work and economic growth by 2030, we must act now to transform the working age population into productive forces with more decent and inclusive jobs for the youth, especially our women. According to the International Labour Organization, ILO, over 72 million youths in Africa are not in education, training, or employment, and the majority of these are women. The IDA21 replenishment thus provides a window to increase job creation through scaling up private sector investment, increasing critical and growth sectors, promoting entrepreneurial skills, human capital index, assuming that a child born in sub-Saharan Africa benefits from complete education and full health care coverage, he or she is anticipated to realize only 40% of future productivity. The human capital index, this human capital index is 48% for lower income countries and 71% for higher income countries. Clearly, we have more work to do for Africa. Therefore, stronger global cooperation and a commitment to investing in African capital, a human capital, and creating a productive workforce are important ingredients in enabling developing countries to escape the trap of poverty and enhance economic growth and development. As we all strive to prioritize education and skills development, enhance quality health and well-being, and promote social protection policies and coverage, we must do so with a strong desire and will to advocate for increased resources that will make an indelible footprint in our lives for our people. In our collective action for IDA21 replenishment, we must ensure that women and girls, we must ensure that empowering women and girls is not optional. It is a condition for achieving inclusivity and sustainable development on our continent. We must allocate increased resources for gender mainstreaming in all our development programs. This includes improving women's access to productive resources, strengthening access to quality social services such as education, maternal and child health, addressing gender-based violence, and advancing women's leadership and representation in decision-making platforms. Also, given our prevailing fragilities, increased resources for security, conflict prevention and management, peace building, access to justice and crisis, and emergency response, we serve as important pillars in building stronger and a more peaceful continent. But furthermore, as our countries seek to leverage the fourth industrial revolution technologies, scaling up digitalization efforts across the continent requires enormous financial resources. As global leaders, we must be resolute in changing the face of business processes, systems, and the models in our institutions. The call for IDA21 replenishment should ensure that we make additional investments in areas such as payment systems development, digital financial inclusion, fintech development, and digitalization of tax administration systems. Your Excellencies, closing Africa's huge infrastructure gap should be an important component of the blueprint for the pending IDA pooling of resources. Investment in critical infrastructure such as energy, roads, information, communication, and technology remain the pathway to a buoyant growth. Through the IDA21 resources, the World Bank's new energy program, could support member countries in making huge investment in renewable energy sources and power transmission lines, an important sector required to spur economic growth and support our industrialization, as has been ably spoken to by our big brother, President Yoweri Museveni. Improving service delivery, accountability and transparency in governance is critical to all these. Strengthening domestic revenue mobilization efforts, improving public expenditure efficiency and management is key. Improving debt management and exploring innovative ways to deal with unanticipated shocks is of utmost importance to all of us. We anticipate that the IDA21 replenishment will further help countries with increased debt budget support for their development programs. In conclusion, most of our countries are facing dire economic challenges, worsened by high levels of debt service payment. Despite these financial challenges, my government remains committed to delivering people-centered development through our medium-term national development program plan. We are leveraging the big 5 game changers, priority areas of intervention to improve the quality of life of our people. These include 1, our flagship Feed Salon program to boost agricultural productivity and achieve food security. 2, accelerating human capital development. 3, developing youth employment schemes. 4, revamping our public service architecture. And 5, infrastructure development and improving technology. We require substantial financial and technical support and strategic partnership to spur sustainable growth and social progress in Sierra Leone to alleviate extreme poverty in our country. Given the need to support the pact articulated in the Nairobi communique, I join my colleagues in the call to generate resources for IDA21 replenishment that will be significantly higher than the record 93 billion raised in 2022 for IDA20. As we continue this appeal, we are not oblivious to the challenging economic and geopolitical landscape that could have implications for major donor countries. We, however, remain optimistic that our traditional donors, new and emerging donors, and philanthropic organizations will once again rise to the occasion and give their valuable support to the IDA replenishment effort. Let us build a stronger Africa, share prosperity with IDA, and strengthen partnerships and cooperation to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Before I invite the next leader onto the stage, may I very politely and humbly ask those who are yet to speak to keep to the allocated 5 minutes, please, if you can. Allow me on that note to invite His Excellency Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, to the stage.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency, Aja Bangeor Bank Group, President, IDA, representatives of other regions, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by thanking our host, my brother, President Ruto. As we gather today, our shared vision for prosperous, equitable, and sustainable future hinges upon our ability to address the pressing challenges faced by countries across the continent, while also harnessing the immense potential of its youth population. Allow me to shed light on the state of affairs in Ethiopia, a nation that has been harnessing resilience in the face of a spectrum of challenges, aggravated by external forces such as climate change, pandemic, geopolitical tension, and the soaring global cost of living. First and foremost, the Ethiopian government has navigated structural macroeconomic reforms amid challenges, focusing our attention on macro-financial stability, productivity enhancement, and favorable investment climate. Second, and central to our collective aspirations for a peaceful continent, we must foster dialogue and reconciliation. In late 2021, Ethiopia formed the National Dialogue Commission to lead inclusive talks, independently tackling ongoing conflicts with wide public involvement. The Commission has thus far had consultative dialogue involving tens of thousands of stakeholders over 2 years. Regional dialogue are imminent, aiming to expand participation further. Third, like many IDA countries, Ethiopia faces unemployment and a skill gap challenge, with the government prioritizing accessible education to empower citizens while encouraging youth engagement in startups across various fields. Investment in skills and education is central to Ethiopia's 10-year development plan, with a focus on sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism, expected to cover over 2 million new jobs. Fourth, universal energy access stands as a cornerstone for sustainable development. As it stands currently, half of our population is still without access to reliable electricity. We are massively investing on clean and renewable energy public service access. Lastly, as stewards of our planet, we must prioritize efforts to build a livable future for all. The Horn of Africa faces escalating threats from climate change, including rising temperature, food insecurity, and extreme weather events. Ethiopia is actively countering this challenge through its Green Legacy initiative, prioritizing afforestation, reforestation, and environmental conservation. With over 32.5 billion seedlings planted towards a goal of 50 billion over 2 phases. Ethiopia aligns with global agreements like the Paris Climate Change Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Excellencies, while the international development associations' existing support must be commended, the sheer scale for challenges many African countries face necessitate a renewed approach. With 120 million fiscally increased support for crisis preparedness, response, and recovery is essential. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very happy and excited to invite to the stage Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, our host, Chairperson of the African Union, President Mohamed Ghazouani of Mauritania, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, President of the World Bank, ladies and gentlemen, I thank President Ruto and the government of Kenya for the warm hospitality extended to us and commend him on successful hosting of this summit.